Hi guys, and welcome to episode 2 of Coffee with Spects. That rolled off the tongue really, really well. Today I'm here with a good buddy of mine who I've known, I think, for a decade at this point. That seems right, right?
That's completely true. It's been at least 10 years,
Oh dear God.
maybe more.
I think, yeah, it might have been, yeah. So I'm hanging out with my buddy here, Sean, aka Captain Clean. He's the captain for the I don't know how to what adjective to use. The incredible, insane, fundraising champions of the Inland Empire, the Justice League of Awesome. These guys have been rocking the Extra Life game for the last 10 years and had a record-breaking 2020 despite everything thrown at them. So, hey Sean, welcome to my humble little coffee shop.
Hey man, thanks for having me. And that was a pretty banging intro.
You know,
That was I could tell you rehearsed it.
yeah, I tried. I had a Tim Van Straten on, who's a professional radio guy, so I picked up a few things from him.
That's perfect. Yeah, you guys have been tight forever.
Yeah,
So I'm sure he'd loved hanging out and talking sports and life with you.
oh yeah, it's not too often we get the Chicago experience out here in the Inland Empire, and then have everything we say be completely and utterly wrong for the Angels literally 24 hours later. That was the kicker, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. I mean, it's fun to speculate. So and
Yeah,
uh,
it's fun
you
to
know,
speculate and then turn out to be like not even on the same page as what you thought should happen.
oh well, that's basically all of Detroit sports right now. So
I know
where I grew up. So
I happened to turn on the Red Wings Tampa Bay Lightning game, and it was 5-1 Lightning. And I'm like, well, that's a fall off Providence.
now, now it's lonely at the top, and Detroit was there for a quarter of a century with the
Yeah.
playoff streak, and that was a long time. I
What's
think I became a fan when I was 10, and that happened to be the first year that the playoff streak started.
That's nutty.
So I had
Well,
never had it so good.
but what's so crazy is in terms of hockey, one of my favorite bands is from Detroit, and literally all they did was talk smack during hockey season, and they all posted when the Detroit made it. I think in mid 2000s, where it was like the year the streak was at. I think it had to have been like the last year, 25 or 26, and the number of teams that active playoff streak was older than like a quarter of the league, including like my team, the Ducks. Like this streak is older than they are, and it's
Oh,
I'm like, all right, we get it. You're good.
that's so true because the commissioner Gary Bettman, he was all about aggressive expansion into the South and in the West, and a lot of that became possible with they call them the second six. So after the original six teams, the second six joined the league, and then LA was part of the picture, and then maybe a decade or so later, Edmonton's owner needed money, and he's like, well, how do I get money? Trade Wayne Gretzky, and that's what he did. He sent him to the Kings, and hockey blew up over here in SoCal. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, let's put teams in Florida. Let's put two teams in Florida. Let's move Minnesota to Dallas. Let's throw in Nashville and Columbus and Atlanta and Phoenix and all of them.
Yeah, I mean
And
Atlanta's no longer a team, but oh well.
yeah, they've tried twice. I don't know. They've had a team and lost a team twice. Both of them moved to Canada.
Yeah,
So
that's what's nutty is it's almost like, hey, if you can't make it somewhere in the United States, well, Canada will take you.
it's like, yeah, there's the fan base there, but I didn't realize this until recently, but Toronto, I mean, that's like a New York or an LA level city where
Yeah,
it could support more than one team in any given sport.
yeah. What's crazy is a show I listen to. They have one of the former owners of the Expos. And what's
Ah,
crazy, like what's funny is if you I don't know if you ever looked at like where Montreal is in Canada or on a map in Canada on a map, but where it's
yeah.
located, where it's located is you sort of think it would get some sort of bleed over. Because I always thought it was like way up, like in the depths of the frozen white north that is Canada, and it's not. It's
It's surprisingly closer to New England than people would think.
Yeah, it's literally like north of Buffalo, but
Mm-hmm.
they, for whatever reason, and I don't understand it, is they like, where is it? I'm looking at it. I'm actually looking at it on a map because I want to get it like kind of right. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
do it,
like it's
man.
literally
Google Earth.
across. It literally has a waterway separating it from Vermont. Like it's not far away by any stretch of the imagination, but for whatever reason, this city does not want professional sports in it. I don't understand why. Like whatever it is, whether it's they're the separatists and they don't want to be a part of it, but they
Are you
had
talking
like,
about Montreal?
yeah, the city of Montreal. It doesn't want, for whatever reason, it does not like. I don't know if it's American sports, but like with baseball, is they
Yeah,
did not want the Expos, like at all,
that's so strange. I mean,
like at all.
do you remember? Do you know offhand? I don't. How long the Expos were in Montreal?
They were there for a while. It wasn't like they they left. I think, when did they leave? 2004, 2005. When they
Okay,
whenever the
that sounds
Nationals
about
came,
right.
whenever the Nationals came into play, and I think that was 2005. I want to say,
That sounds about right.
or so the
Yeah.
last season in Montreal was 2004. So then, yeah, 2005 was like the first year they weren't there. But that team was in
Dude,
trouble.
yeah, it just so it was better than like a Vancouver Grizzlies situation.
Yeah.
Like as far as how long they were in town, but it still, I mean, obviously it wasn't successful.
Mm-mm.
They ended up moving, but I mean, as far as I know, all they have are the Canadiens, which is basically a religion in
Yeah.
Montreal. I mean, that team
They
has so much history.
Yeah, they love their hockey, but I don't know if it's just like we don't want the like apart from like a poor French accent, like the dirty American sports in there. Which I mean, it could have been because they think hockey is more Canadian. But it was
I
like,
don't know.
but I mean, you're hearing these stories from like the former owners, David Sampson, who owned the team before he moved to the Marlins, and the way he's making it seem like is like they didn't want us there. They were like, get away, go away, we don't want you here.
Man,
And
that's terrible. But
and like,
sometimes when it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
well, they'll blame them still for the Expos leaving, and it's like, but you didn't want them there. Like, if you want a team back, I think they should get a team. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, wait a minute, you had a team and booted them out.
Dang, and I mean, ownership can only hang on to a team that long before
Yeah.
you lose. You can only lose so much revenue when fans aren't showing up, and you're not getting tickets, parking, season ticket
Are
packages.
are the
Random fans showing up. Like if that doesn't happen, eventually you have to
Yeah.
sell.
I mean, the Canadians are owned by I would assume a Canadian group.
They're owned by the Molson family.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're they're set. They're
I
good.
mean, like that was the whole thing is no Canadian like when they went up to put it because the MLB owned the Expos. That's how that the situation got, and no Canadian, no Montreal Canadian group came forward.
Yeah,
Which is
that's
like
That's when you
okay,
know it's bad.
yeah,
Yeah, and if not even a recession or depression or like a bear market, when things dry up, I mean, it doesn't have to be nationwide. It just has to be the owner's industry.
oh yeah,
If they come on hard times, they'd have to be they need an influx of cash pretty quickly to right the ship, and usually a sports team is one of those luxuries.
yeah, with the
You
capital
have a
and overhead.
business. Yeah, I mean, you have a business that's popular enough to purchase a team, which means hopefully your corporation has roots in the area,
Yeah,
and you want to continue that, and you want to have a good reputation. But then if you buy a team, it's like, okay, well, that team has to be a winner. Like that's the
yeah,
goal, right?
yeah.
Otherwise, this is
No,
just a money pit.
I
And
mean,
yeah,
you're from. I mean, you already said you're from Detroit. I mean, you had
uh huh.
the owners. So the Detroit Red Wing owners, do they own? Are they owners for the Tigers too, or any of the other ones, or is it just? I forget, because I know it's the Little Caesars guys.
Yeah, no,
But
you're right. The Ilitch family built their empire on Little Caesars Pizza,
yeah,
and they were selling. I mean, Mike Ilitch was a businessman, but he worked to the bone, and him and his wife opened a pizza chain, and they made it work, and they built this empire, and they purchased the Red Wings when they were at their lowest value in the early '80s, and they were so bad. I mean, they're an original six team. They've been around since 1926, so their centennial season is coming up soon. But
Crazy.
the last time they had a sniff at a Stanley Cup or being a playoff contender was like they lost in the finals in the mid '60s to Toronto, and then in the '70s and the '80s they were called the Dead Wings or the Dead Things, and they were the laughing stock of the league. And Illich bought them, and he started getting people in seats. The first thing was he would give away a car after every single home game, and
Is that
he
where
just
that
said,
started?
that's where it started. He was like, let's give away a car. Let's get
No
people in
kidding.
seats. Yeah, no lie at all.
Wow.
That was early '80s. And then in '83, they wanted one guy. He was actually a Michigan. He grew up in Michigan, born and bred, but some other team took him. So they drafted Steve Yzerman in '83 with the fourth pick, and he had an even better career than the guy they're trying to get instead. So that was the second big thing after giving away the cars that got people in seats was Yzerman really bringing respectability back. But they knew with Yzerman they couldn't waste his prime, they couldn't waste his career, so they got good hockey guys in, and they started building a team with Yzerman as a centerpiece. And then, maybe about 10 years after Yzerman got drafted, that's when the playoff streak started. So yeah, you need dedicated ownership with roots in the area, and now they own the Red Wings, but they also own the Tigers, like you said.
Yeah.
They also own at least one or two casinos and the major theater in Detroit, the Fox Theater.
Interesting. Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I mean, you get major Broadway productions when they're touring around the country. Like the
Yeah.
Fox Theater is one of
You
those
get-
stops.
Yeah, and you'll probably get a few concerts inside there if it's similar. If it's like similar to a Fox Theater.
Oh,
we
yeah.
have out here. I mean, not
Yeah,
so much
absolutely.
now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, the Illiches, you might credit them with kind of saving the city of Detroit, because outside of sports, I mean, they were walking through bankruptcy as a
Oh
city.
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, you had. I remember there's a video I watched where somebody was. I mean, he was from Canada, but he grew up in Detroit, and he was making a point about how somebody made the comment like, "Oh, Detroit's flourishing," and he literally drove from like the city center out like 6 miles, and like the drastic change that you could see going through this area was night and day. Like, not even.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know. It was nutty. Like literally every direction he went, like you were like 2 miles out, and it was like a completely different thing. And it's
Yeah,
like,
that sounds about right.
What happened to this city?
Yeah, well, I mean, in World War II, a lot of the cities, especially Detroit, they had the factories and the infrastructure because they're the Motor City, right? I mean, they're
Yeah.
making cars and all this stuff, so they repurposed a lot of the factories. If I read this right in history, repurposed it to manufacture weapons and vehicles to support the war effort.
Yeah, they had.
And
yeah.
FDR called the city the arsenal of democracy. He said they were churning out so much for the war effort, and at its peak, Detroit had about 4 million people in the city limits. That's a big city, but they had some issues in the mid-century, but they also pioneered the idea of the suburb, because the Motor City obviously, but people were realizing like, hey, with cars we can make a commute pretty easily. We don't have to stay cooped up in the city.
Yeah,
we can go where there's land.
Yeah, I mean, I think around sort of the same time when you had the Model T come out, like, that changed everything, especially for like, those those major metropolitan areas where it's like you don't have to be within a handful of miles to get to work. You can kind of go outside the city, that city limit area, and have a little bit of separation.
Yeah, it's true. But I think it was a double-edged sword because, with the advent of suburbs, you needed, major roadways to get a lot of people into the city for work, and so that meant building highways through very, very poor neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And with uh, gosh, I'm trying to remember. As far as I can tell, some of those neighborhoods that they bulldozed and they basically evicted people and didn't give them alternative housing. That was kind of the start of some of the race riots that happened in the '60s, and my parents lived through that. They were young. I think they were teenagers, young teenagers at the time, and they're like, yeah. And then the race riots, when they happened, that kind of triggered white flight, and all of this happened, across the country on some level, but with Detroit, with the cars and everything.
You're in the hub of it.
Yeah, so, with all of that happening, you had people leaving the city because they could buy houses elsewhere. You had people leaving the city because it had become dangerous. And all of a sudden, looking at it now, a city of 4 million people now has less than 1 million people. But you still have the buildings, the utilities, the public works, the infrastructure for 4 million people.
And nothing to do with it, yeah.
Yeah, but I do have to say, Illich turned the city around, and he's probably not perfect, his record, but
you do a lot. It says a lot when you can. Just thinking about I know baseball better than I know hockey, but you had a decent run there for a while with the Tigers. You had trading for Miguel Cabrera in 2006, and then having Verlander coming up and dominating. You had the Tigers. I think the Tigers went to the World Series in 2006, and then 2000 and oh my gosh,
it was either 2012 or 2013, one of the two.
So you had they had a run, and they had dominant, they had the pitching staff and everything. They've had runs. That city's had its runs. Bad Boys in the '80s, the Red Wings for a quarter of a century. The Tigers. Tigers have had more misery than anything, but they're coming
except
back
for
too.
the Lions. You're right. But the Lions have been.
I wasn't going to bring up the Lions, who have made every star that team has had retire early.
It was bad, let me tell you. But a lot of those sports, that's what it means to a city. And when you don't have good ownership and you don't have the fan support, you never want a team to fold because the owners know there's still value. So that's what ends up happening. They relocate.
I legitimately feel, and I feel bad for Lions fans, because those years with Stafford and Megatron, it's wow, you had the quarterback, you had the wide receiver, and jeez.
Yeah, then somewhere in the middle there, they hired Matt Millen, the TV analyst, to be their general manager.
I forgot about Matt Millen.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm here for, to remind everybody.
Remind everyone that, don't worry, Matt Millen was a GM at some point. Therefore, you too, sports commentator, can get a job in a front office. Yeah,
and then when they finally got rid of him, when they came to their senses, he was back on TV the next season.
Yeah, back on TV, still going, well, here's what I did when I was GMing the Lions.
Oh, buddy, no. But
most people go the other way, not go from it back to it.
Yeah, I tell you what, though. When you get committed ownership, bad teams can stick around for a while, and there's nothing more powerful than hope, right? Every season, Lions fans are hoping for a turnaround, and not so much anymore now, because Stafford was the last gasp.
I'll say, you've watched, you're out here now, you've seen Goff. It's not like you got the Lions getting Goff is a downgrade per se. You've got a guy who's in his early to mid 20s now, versus, I know you're not replacing the yards, but you kind of bought yourself a little bit more of a window now. Maybe, I don't know.
I think so. I think you're right. I was reading an article yesterday about Goff and how his completions, his yardage, he just doesn't seem to go deep much anymore.
Yeah, he's system quarterbacks will do that, where it's almost like the Alex Smith effect, where it's the short little dump offs, and you kind of let the athletic guys do it. I don't know if it's they don't have deep threats or what. I don't know. But
and I don't think Detroit has the horses to run that race.
don't worry. You can always be better than the Bears. So you got that going for you.
That's always the hope. That's always the hope.
Okay, if you want to know a fun fact about your favorite Chicago football team,
sure. I love
take a
hearing
guess at
stuff
who the
about
best
the Bears.
quarterback. Guess who the best quarterback in Bears franchise history is?
I gotta. My guess has to be. It's probably wrong because I think his career was cut short. But my first guess is what, Jim McMahon.
Nope.
Oh,
Everyone goes to McMahon, and it's not McMahon.
dang it! He's sitting like everywhere he goes. He has to wear sunglasses and sit in the dark because he just got
that
his
dude's
career.
brain. That dude's brain is nothing but a scrambled egg.
It's rough. I mean, I think the 30 for 30 series, their feature, the Bears. I mean, it's fascinating. The guy is a fascinating dude. I'm glad he can function, but I mean, football can take almost everything
yeah.
away from you. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to think. Did Jim Kramer play for the Bears? He played for the Lions for a bit. I felt like.
It's not an older. It's not an older quarterback. It's in the last 20. It's in the last 21 years. This guy played.
Oh gosh, I try to make it a point to not know too much about the Bears. You know what? You got me. You got me.
Jay Cutler.
The former Mr. Cavallari.
Yeah, Jay Cutler, Mr. Cavallari is the best quarterback the Bears have ever had.
Dude, you can obviously tell I have forgotten about him, but yeah.
Our buddy Tim told me that a couple of years ago, and he's like, you ever want to piss off Bear fan? Just let him know that Jay Cutler is the best quarterback that franchise has ever had.
Oh, jeez, no
so, I mean,
way.
I mean, you could be the Bears and just be like, the guy you absolutely hate is the best thing you've ever had. Let that sink in.
Jeez.
So as bad as it is in Detroit, it's not that bad.
No, it's not. I mean, you talked about it too. I mean, in the early '80s, Detroit, the Tigers had Sparky Anderson and Kirk Gibson, if you can believe it.
Old man Kurt, yeah.
Yeah, before he had the walk-off homer for the Dodgers and
I think so.
88?
Yeah, I think he was in Detroit whenever Detroit went to the World Series in the '80s. I think he was on that team.
Yeah, so I mean,
let me do some on-the-fly research here.
Yeah, well, Sparky was with the team through the end of the decade, I'm pretty sure, maybe into the 90s. So their '84 World Series win got people, gives people hope. Like, oh, we're never that far away from contending, and but the Tigers were on the downward trend in the late '80s, and then the Bad Boys era Pistons kind of took over.
So so Gibson was in Detroit. He was in there. He was there till '88, so he had to have been on that World Series team in the '80s. I just don't. When that team was, I couldn't tell you, but I know he was on there.
That makes sense. Yeah, so he was a good player for a lot of years here. Then the Tigers kind of ebbed. Then the Bad Boys Pistons took over, and I really love that man because any team that could beat the Bulls in the '80s and the '90s, they were instantly in my top 3 favorite NBA teams.
Yeah, there you go.
So when it wasn't Detroit,
when it's Chicago on top of it,
yeah. So the years that Jordan was out, I love that the Rockets won back-to-back titles.
Robert Horry that's why Robert Horry has a couple more rings than you think.
That's right. Yeah, because he wasn't just with the Spurs, right? He was.
He was on the second of the back-to-backs in Houston, and then the 3 with the Lakers and the 3 with the Spurs.
Yeah, I remember. I'll always remember. What was it? The 2005? Yeah, 2005 NBA Finals. It was Game 7, and it was Detroit and San Antonio. And for some reason, Rasheed Wallace left Robert Horry open, and it was late in Game 7. I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And that it didn't end well. I was right. But you got to respect players that you have to have those complementary pieces, and Detroit needed Joe Dumars and Vinnie Johnson, the microwave, and John Spider Sally, and Dennis Rodman before he colored his hair and lost his mind. They were all, and Bill Lambier, of course.
The late great Bill Lambier.
Yeah, we still have to find that his game on the Super Nintendo.
I was gonna say, did I just kill off Bill Lambier? God, I hope I didn't.
No. Yeah, we still got to find a copy of Bill Lambier's Combat Basketball on the Super Nintendo.
Oh no!
Give that a whirl. Yeah, the cover is just him wearing like a cyborg suit, like he's RoboCop, and he's dunking on somebody. So, the whole game is full of Lambier clones where everyone's throwing punches and elbows and jackknifing people in midair.
Oh,
it's
dear
awesome.
Lord, what is this cover? Why does he look like a wannabe RoboCop?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was just his rep, dude.
What is this?
It's pretty special. But you know what? That's what success does. I mean, you get the city behind you. You get good ownership behind you. You get on a cereal box. You get a video game.
You get the RoboCop, the video game for a Super Nintendo.
I can with 90% certainty guarantee that game is better than Michael Jordan's Chaos of the Windy City for the Super Nintendo as well.
I fully believe it.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Sort of the awkward segue, but since we're talking about video games, I assume you saw that the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog called it quits. I mean, you're a Sega guy.
I grew up a Sega guy. My friends had all the Nintendo systems, so we would take all the consoles to each other's houses for all night gaming sessions, and those were good times. But when I first heard about it, I didn't know his name, my brain went back to the cartoon when I was younger.
That's what I thought.
When Steve Urkel Steve Urkel from Family Matters, Jaleel White, he was the voice of Sonic in the cartoon. So I was like, Jaleel White retired? What? But
he did one Scion commercial, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, and so this guy, I mean, he's played Sonic for a long, long time, and I've played a few of the earlier games, but since then Sonic just hasn't been, at the forefront of. He's kind of been like the Detroit Lions of video games. He's just been cursed for a long, long time.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's what's weird is I don't think I've ever said this, but when it came to Sega, I sort of thought Sega was like a mythical thing, like it might have had a system, but it never really did. Because I'm a product of the '90s, so like the first gaming console I ever laid my hands on was the N64 and the Super Nintendo in my buddy's room.
Yeah, and by that time Sega was on the way out already.
Yeah, with we're playing PlayStation 1 with Tony Hawk and Super Nintendo, Super Nintendo Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I don't really play many of the games that this guy, had, but Sega back in the day, they had, when Sonic was huge, they would have gaming tournaments, and one time they rented out Alcatraz Island and just had a gaming tournament there.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, It was called Rock the Rock or something like that. It was 1993 Sega World Championships, and it was Sonic the Hedgehog and a few other games, and they got regional tournaments, and they got the top 10 in the country to go to Alcatraz.
Oh my god, and you literally put in Sega World Championship and it legitimately says Sega World Championship Alcatraz. How have I not heard about this?
I know, right? And they timed people, and they said, okay, you have to get as many rings or power-ups as you can in this amount of time. So you had to memorize the stages to know where all the rings were and what the fastest path was. And
$25,000? What?
Ooh, that's good money. See, Sonic was they were the jam back in the 90s.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, dude,
and
it was.
This island's haunted. They went to a haunted island and literally said, "Hey, let's put 25 G's on the line."
Well, I think that. Well, I was gonna say no, I can't be haunted because they filmed The Rock there. But can anyone honestly say Nicolas Cage is the same? Has he ever been the same after that movie? Maybe not.
if you can find this, the only sports radio show I listen to, the Dan Levitard show. If I
Yeah, I've
find
heard
it,
of
I'll
it.
send it to you. So they have like this weird fascination with like celebrities like that, like Nick Cage, and they've literally
Yeah.
read some of his stuff. I think I can find it real quick, but they talked about like some of his stuff he's bought. Like it's so nutty.
Well, the most normal thing I've heard about Nicolas Cage, I read about actually this morning.
Oh yeah,
So with WandaVision on Disney Plus right now
great show by the way.
is a fantastic show, and last Friday's episode really turned a corner as far as getting me to sit up and take notice.
Yeah, no,
But
I'm fully there with you.
yeah. Well, so they brought back Kat Dennings. She was a supporting character in the first two Thor movies, which people don't really remember that well. Like, for a lot of people, if they remember Thor, it's like from Thor Ragnarok and later. But
I'm just
she,
glad my boy Jimmy Woo was in there. Let's not forget Jimmy Woo.
Jimmy Woo, he's underrated. He's really underrated. So, anyways, Kat Dennings, she's been getting interviewed because she showed up in the previous episode of WandaVision, and they were just asking her questions, and they said, "What's one of your like favorite memories of just being an actress and auditioning?" And she said, "Okay, I had a chance to audition with Nicolas Cage," and she didn't say what movie it was, but she said I was young. I was really young. And as part of this audition, I was in the room like playing off of Nicolas Cage's character, and he was supposed to be chasing me. And I had to be like running away from him and just like resisting him and all this stuff because he wanted to kidnap me or whatever. But the thing was, Nicolas Cage wouldn't touch her. Just out of respect, he didn't want to even like simulate acting out like a scene from the movie where she was in danger, and he didn't want to
Yeah.
like grab her shoulders and shake her around and make her feel threatened, even in an audition. So she was like, as this is happening, like I basically had to mime like he was trying to like catch me or grab me, which was completely ridiculous. And she remembered thinking clearly in the moment, like, there's no way I'm getting this part because I'm just basically becoming a mime, and there's nothing I can do acting out because he won't act it out with me. And everyone thought, man, that's really weird. But then she said, no, not really, because one, I got to like hang with Nicolas Cage for that day, and two, like he showed a lot of respect for me in that moment. He didn't have to, but like it didn't matter to him. He's like, no, I'm not gonna make this gal feel unsafe. And so, then that is by far the most normal thing I've heard about Nicolas Cage in years.
I sent you that video, so take it
Oh,
at
yeah?
your leisure when we're done. Go ahead and they go over it. It's pretty fascinating.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. I am here for it. Totally here for it.
At your leisure. Go enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I guess we can segue into the grind. I don't want to say grind, but the intriguing portion of this, I guess, conversation. So you started Extra Life in 2011. You've been doing
Yes,
it
I
for
did.
You've been doing it for 10 years. I remember the humble beginnings of your first humble little apartment, just destroying a couch in the process.
Yeah, I think it was flammable by the time we were done. So
I stand by. You should have lit it on fire and sent it to Valhalla the way it deserved to go out.
just give it the Viking send off,
You should have, honestly.
Send
You
it down the
could've left
LA
it-
River.
do you watch Bob's Burgers at all?
I do not. I do not.
there was
Heard
an
amazing
episode-
things about it.
There was an episode where some band literally just lit stuff on fire, and one of it was literally like they got a couch and we're gonna light a couch on fire for a music video. I'm like, yeah, that's what we should have done. Lit the thing on fire for a music video. And the song was literally like, if you love it, set it on fire.
Wow.
Like
wow.
it was like, I'm like, this is so perfect.
We totally could have done that. Yeah. But yeah, dude. I don't know how to. You said this was the intriguing portion. It's like, how do I top Nicolas Cage?
I don't necessarily. I mean, I don't. I guess the more. I'll say this. I say why it's intriguing is something. I don't think most people can do something like that for 10 years, let alone stagnant growth within 10 years. You
It's
know?
it's an interesting journey. It's something that has kind of taken shape over the course of the 10 years, like you said. And when you're really passionate about something, it takes off and it opens doors.
Yeah.
And creatively, I'm still trying to do that. Like I'm a writer, so I'm editing a book. I'm writing a screenplay right now, and that's my ultimate goal. But growing up with gaming, and we talked about it earlier. I was the Sega kid, and my close friends had the Super Nintendo and the 64, so we would just swap systems and hang out and play each other's
Yeah.
games, and that was just kind of what we did. If I was built like a linebacker, maybe I'd be a linebacker, but I'm built more like a horse jockey. So
There you go.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Did
So
I ever
yeah,
did I ever tell you I had a professor in college who was a retired horse jockey,
that's amazing.
and he was literally 5'6", and it was the greatest. And he was one of my psych professors, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was great.
At
There's
some
not,
point, I mean, he must have weighed what, like 110 pounds?
oh yeah, he may be 120 soaking wet. But there's
Yeah.
not when you start talking about like grit and stuff, from in psychology terms, you're not going to get anything better than the former horse jockey who doesn't eat unless he wins. Let me tell you, those horse jockeys, man, they're a feisty bunch.
They are. I've seen the movie Secretariat. I know what
Yeah,
that's
there you go.
about. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
sort of. So I mean, okay. So in the beginning, 10 years
Hmm.
ago,
Yeah.
what was the original team numbers? I'm sort of remembering it. We had what, 20 guys in an apartment like that first like 2 years, right?
Yeah, but thankfully never at the same time.
Yeah,
We had
yeah,
people
yeah.
come and
It was
go.
stagnant. Yeah, it was never. You had a handful of people who were there the whole time, but most of us would sort of rotate.
Yeah.
Keep,
So, I mean, this is something, my wife and I, we've been married over 15 years, and we've
yeah,
lived a couple different places
you know what?
before.
Honestly, God bless Shelley for letting that old apartment.
I know, right? I've got a story about that I'll share later, but what happened was, in college I was playing games, not so much more than the average person, but I had the original Xbox with Halo, and I feel like for most of my sophomore year, like I'd say like 75% of the time I came back from class, like some rando person was playing Halo on my console with my roommate, and we just kept meeting people on campus, and it was awesome. It was a way to bring people together. And my wife and I, we like to host things and we like to hang out with
Just a
people
little bit.
and have them over. Yeah,
Just a little
so
bit.
yeah, so we had moved to Chino, which we're still here, back in 2011, and one of like an acquaintance of mine from up in the Bay Area, because we had moved from the Bay Area near San Francisco to Chino.
Mhm.
And so one of our friends, she started working at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and she was their event coordinator. So she would do Extra Life, but she would also, do planning and coordinating for their annual golf tournaments with like the LA Kings and the Dodgers
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So she was well connected, and Extra Life had only started maybe 3 years before that, and I hadn't heard of it until
Yeah,
she mentioned it.
Yeah.
She texted us and said, "Hey, have you heard of Extra Life?" And we're like, "What is it?" And she's like, I'm not totally sure because it's new." And she's not a gamer, but she
yeah,
said,
Rumors and
it's.
whispers back in the day.
She's like, this is an initiative that the Children's Hospital Network, because CHLA is one of 170 hospitals in North America. So it's this big, huge network, and Extra
Yeah.
Life benefits all of them. So she said, "Yeah, this is what I know. It's gaming for charity." And that, I mean, it wasn't like a super involved pitch, but I mean, she had me at video games. So
That was
I,
the selling point. Yeah.
yeah, so I looked into it, and I thought, well, gaming brought a lot of people together in college, and I'd still like to do that. So let's see if we can raise $1,000 for CHLA, and we had picked CHLA primarily because my cousin, she's a senior in high school right now, that lives out here near the LA area, and she had open heart surgery when she was really young.
Oh, I don't think I even knew this.
Yeah, maybe within a year. Our first game day was within a year of her open heart surgery.
Okay.
So we wanted to support CHLA for that reason, and we set out to raise $1,000, and I think we got closer to like 1,360.
Okay.
So we had about 15 to 20 guys that first year, and it's Extra Life by nature. Game day is a 24-hour event,
Yep.
and it's a different kind of marathon than a 5K, but you are staying awake for at least 24 hours, and that's a very difficult thing for most people to do. So, sitting and playing games, it takes more mental focus than anything. But
Yeah.
that's not to say like, oh, look at us, staying up and not sleeping,
No, no,
playing games.
not by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not at all. But we learned very quickly early on, and I was lucky to have a personal connection to it with my cousin, to know that the children are the real heroes in this, because they're forced to grow up quick and forced to mature very fast when they have a life threatening illness, condition, injury, and
Yeah.
they are at the hospital, which is the best place for them to be, but it's hard for them not to feel like they're missing out on their childhood.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
I think you and I have maybe talked about this. My cousin too. He went to APU for nursing, and he was at CHLA for a while. I don't think.
Oh, I didn't know
now,
that. That's rad.
Yeah, I think now he went back and is teaching. I think he left and went back and is now teaching nursing at APU.
Right on.
But, yeah, so I mean, like so I mean that was my connection to CHLA too. But I mean, no, I mean you're so right when it comes to like those kids where it's. I mean, what's crazy is like looking at it now. It's like, you hear the whole things of like, I mean, you hear more so about like the parents and stuff where it's like they're in hospitals alone. It's like kids are the same way. Like it's not the same where it used to be.
Yeah.
29. Like we were saying in 2019, where it's, they might have had a parent with them at least through some of it. Now it's probably like non-existent.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation where the parents are there, and the hospital staff is trying to treat the child. But what I appreciate about CHLA and also Chalk, we had started supporting Chalk in 2014. One of our own team members, got seriously ill. So we switched over to Chalk in 2014, and we asked Extra Life, hey, when we sign up, we pick a hospital we support, but can we support a family instead of a hospital? And they said no, but you can probably do like a GoFundMe or a Give Forward or something, one of those, to crowdfund for just the family. So that's what we did in 2013. But when we went to 2014, I think it became more real to us because we heard about our friend Matt's experience in the hospital.
Yeah.
Where everyone from the janitor to all of his nurses and the doctors and the specialists, they went out of their way to establish relationship with them and make them feel normal and give them reason to laugh or just talk sports or talk video games. And because Matt was a star athlete in baseball and football in high school before he got sick, and they've been working toward a diagnosis ever since. But the care that he received at Chalk has inspired us and inspired him too. He was second place in our fundraising last year, in a record-breaking year. He topped $2,000. And
wow.
By himself. Yeah, he did a phenomenal job, and he led the charge. And honestly, man, that doesn't happen unless the hospitals are treating not just the injury or the sickness, but they're speaking to the whole person, and it's them and their parents and their siblings. And you look at research now, and the parents are obviously feeling stress, but they're making strides toward caring for the siblings of the sick child, because they're the ones often who feel like, well, we got to go to the hospital again. Mom and dad are giving my brother or sister a lot of attention, and I'm not getting much attention, but I feel guilty. I'm not going to say that because that sounds selfish. Like, but then, that can cause a lot of stress for them too. So hospitals have become more and more aware of that. And so, that's one of the first things I come to when I think of, answering the question of why are we part of this? It's because they're taking care of the whole family, and that's what we're funding, and we're proud to do that.
I mean, I guess with this year, I mean, I know we're jumping ahead in like the timeline here, but like I'm trying. No, because it was like 2014. Okay, I guess we just kind of continue in this order. Was it okay? Was it 2015 when we you guys Justice League officially joined Orange County? Was that 2015 when they joined the guild, or was that before?
Oh, that's a great question.
It all blends together.
So 2011, 2012, we had the game day in my apartment
Mm-hmm.
for CHLA. Raised 1359 the first year and an even 1700 the second year. Matt got sick in early 2013,
Mm-hmm.
and so we raised 5400 for his family just for medical expenses, and his parents were shifting around jobs, changing their schedules to take care of him at home. So
Yeah.
raising funds for them. But then in 2014, if I remember right, we supported Chalk starting in 2014, but we didn't join the guild until at least 2015, maybe 2016.
I think it was
Yeah.
okay because I happened to just go to the actual Justice League page to see if there was a little bit of like a clue, and I see a post like the one of the things saying 2016
That makes sense.
for Orange County, L.A. Orange County, and us, or Justice League in 2016.
Yeah, I had met Mike. He was the head of the OC Guild when we first heard about it, and they had a couple of extra life events in Chalk's conference room in the building adjacent to the main hospital, where we would just meet and mingle and talk plans,
Yeah.
or recruit new people and say, hey, if you're a gamer, like, you're going to be playing games anyways, but if you are getting older, you have more stuff on your plate, and you're looking for motivation, or you want it to count for more than just free time or just time to unwind, like, you can play games for a purpose. And so that we started hearing about the OC Guild, and we thought, well, it's good to connect with people, but one thing that's been a challenge for us is that technically, we're within CHLA's, boundaries. So I'm not sure how those are determined, but when we register
I can't hear
for
anything.
Extra Life every year, the default is CHLA, just based on our zip code.
Well,
Chino.
I think what's weird, and the only reason I think I can kind of make this wild assertion. This can sound really weird, but we have so where Chino. I think it's where Chino and like where I'm at. What's weird is for some of the I don't know what it's word like boundary drawings is
Yeah.
they'll lump us in with LA because it's considered the LA metro area, which makes no. I've always been like that makes no sense because you're closer. You're technically closer to Anaheim than you are LA. I've never understood why it's like you're part of LA metro. I don't ask me. I've never understood it.
Well, it is interesting, I tell you what. But last year, part of our success was that we recruited friends from college or people that we knew that weren't necessarily in Chino or in SoCal at all, and
Yeah.
we emphasized, hey, if you have a personal reason to support a hospital, it doesn't even have to be the closest children's hospital to you. If you have a personal connection to it, just pick it. And we will, the bulk of our team is in SoCal supporting Chalk, but hey, let's widen our reach. Let's support more hospitals by bringing people in from Texas and Michigan and Oregon and Washington.
Uh-huh.
And we'd love to keep building that. So, we went from, 13, 1700 the first couple of years, 3, 4,000, 2015, 2016. Then we started topping 6,000 from 2016 to 2019. And then, we're flirting with 7 grand. And last year, in the middle of the pandemic, things just changed. I think that the messaging changed in a good way, where it wasn't just hey, donate money to kids, because it's there's a call to action in that, but really you're telling a story, and you're telling people about, you're giving them a glimpse of what it's like for a child to be in a hospital with their parents with a lot of uncertainty. That's how it normally is, but when you add COVID to that equation, then
Yeah.
there's a whole other layer of uncertainty and fear because now maybe mom and dad, it's not so easy for them to visit, or extended family can't visit because of COVID protocols.
Do
And
you?
yeah,
No, no, no. I mean, this was just sort of my thought as like, the inside outside observer for this year. Do you? I mean, this crossed my mind as I'm watching the numbers go up. Do you think, kind of how this 2020 went? Do you think there might have been some more? Like, I'm kind of curious overall of the numbers, but do you think people kind of being forced in that position of like having to like people having to quarantine, people having to kind of like the world going on pause? Do you think the world kind of going on pause and everyone sort of realizing, oh my gosh, like everything can change in the blink of an eye at this point? Do you think like having that experience just sort of made everyone realize, oh wait a second, if I have the chance to help somebody who is in that position, whether it be from COVID, from like a net like you know cancer or any number of these illnesses, like
yeah,
do you is was COVID kind of like that push for these people where it's like, if I get the chance to help, I'm going to throw in what I can to help because my position is this, but I mean, there are people who are still having to go to chemotherapy, still having to go to like these treatments, and I mean, let me tell you,
yeah,
I fully get what it's like having someone you know and love go through cancer during COVID, and it's a massive thing. Like I can only imagine what it's like if you're, you know, in that position now where it's like, oh no, you're not even going through it, you're doing treatment alongside it. So even like
yeah.
the slightest sniffle is gonna set your alarm to like 10 and be like, huh.
For sure, a cough or a sneeze, like you start thinking a little differently, and you're wondering what that's like, uh, or wondering, are they sick? Am I going to be sick? I think there's a lot of truth to what you said in your question. Like, does the nature of COVID kind of get people more inclined to support? I think so, definitely. I think that people, well, first of all, everyone who's donated, through the Justice League or through Extra Life, I mean, Extra Life as a whole keeps breaking records,
Hmm.
and I think they topped Extra Life collectively topped 16 million raised across all 170 hospitals last year
Yeah. I
during the
mean, you.
COVID year.
I mean, even just apart from like the individual teams. I mean, you got. I mean, I think I forget how many like bigger YouTubers are doing it, but like you have subreddits doing it now, where it's like, you want to do this, like join our team. It's open invitation. You can literally drop $1 and we can do something. And I mean,
Yeah,
I can only remember some of these numbers. Like I know Machinima had a team years ago that would pull in a couple like million, and a lot of these other streamers who are doing the same thing.
that's
But
right.
like I can only imagine now where it's like people are at home and probably looking for some sort of community.
Well, I'll tell you, like, I think that's absolutely true. I think that people who had the means to support are asking the question of, okay, maybe I'm safe, or maybe I'm as safe as I could be. And COVID is a very paralyzing thing. So I think a lot of people did ask that question of, what can I do to help? And Children's Miracle Network does a great job of having corporate partners that will, have free pancake day at IHOP,
Mm-hmm.
and Dairy Queen does a promotion, Costco does a promotion, and that's kind of how they get the word out. And GameStop has been part of that as well historically. Hopefully that will continue. But that corporate sponsorship and those corporate partners, unfortunately, some of them had to pull back support last year because their industry was hit hard because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think people saw how fragile life can be. They see children being doubly so because emotionally it's more traumatic for them to suffer through things like cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and for people to consider that suffering extends to them too. There's a core philosophical problem to that where it's just not right, and it creates this primal need to respond to that and to support a cause and to fix that problem. And I think that as a whole, Extra Life came through. For our team specifically, I think it was a couple of things. One, again, we have just amazingly generous friends, family members, coworkers, classmates, all the above. Just absolutely incredible. But I do believe that we changed our messaging. Before, I think we had people on our team and we're like, we'll just raise the money and it'll be great. But I think, honestly, last year gave me more time to pour into the team and create a narrative of, hey, this is the why. Like, this is what'll motivate you to send out, an Instagram post or an email campaign. And it's important that we get that right, because that's the story we share. Our reason for putting that call to action out there is going to be the same reason that people will donate and respond and support. So if we get that right, it's going to trickle down well. And we had that messaging be really effective, especially for some newer recruits from last year. We had a guy, to his family is known as Trevor, but we call him the throat puncher. He he has a auto detailing service, and he decided, okay, from the month of June all the way to the end of the year, at least through game day, he said, I'm just gonna donate all the tips that I get for every car that I clean and detail. And I mean, he topped $600 at least. I had my college friends, my friend Heather, she was my wife Shelly's roommate one year in college, so we both knew her pretty well. And she's married, and she's up in the great Pacific Northwest. And her and her husband are huge gamers, probably more so than Shelly and I, but they really took it upon themselves to support their hospital, which is Sacred Heart in Spokane, up in Washington. And they've really taken the reins on that. And so I thought, you know what, at first it was all about chalk, but then I thought, well, let's expand our reach, because we're still going to break records for how much we raised for chalk in 2020, and we did.
Yeah.
But to have these other hospitals in there and say, okay, our team is spreading, nationwide, and then that's going to branch out, and then our team members are going to reach their friends where they're at, and it'll just grow. And last year it really did. So with COVID, there's a lot of the COVID factor, but I also believe that our messaging was better, and we recruited new members, and we had a change of strategy and all of that. And there's so much more I want to do with it, because ultimately, it's a lot of effort, but it's worth it. And when you get down to that 24-hour game day, which is usually in early to mid-November, it's go time. And you plan as best you can, but then at the end of the day, it's a bunch of people doing something that they love for a great cause.
Yeah. No, I mean, you sometimes do 25 hours. It's never 20. Usually it's not 24 these days. It's usually 25 with daylight savings.
It's funny you say that. We got off easy the last couple of years, but they announced official game day this year is Saturday, November 6th, and of course that night is
daylight savings.
It is daylight savings, so that 25th hour, the hard part is 2 a.m. The hard part is 2 a.m.
Hits, right?
Yeah, daylight saving hits at 2 a.m. So it's when it hits 2 a.m. for the second time that you feel it, because that whole hour is just gone. Your clock will lie to you, your iPhone will lie to you, and you have time traveled. So it's just part of the charm, I guess. But
it's the battle scars, it's the stories, where it's
honestly. I mean, I'm proud of what we accomplished last year, not just because of how much was raised, but how we did it and how many people we brought together. But the last big reason was, you said humble beginnings. 2011 through 2013, we had, 20, 25 people in my apartment. And last year was back to our roots because no venues were open to hold the event. And we had been at a couple gaming cafes and lounges the last several years. None of us had hosted it in a long time, and we went back to our roots last November, and we pulled it off somehow.
Somehow, some way.
But it really helped that I knew my bed was like 20 feet away, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
I didn't have to pack it in. I was one of three guys to stay up the whole time, and we did it. You know, I'm team captain, so it's like, okay, I got to lead by example. So
Yeah,
I'm just gonna not sleep, and I'll make up for it in a month.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
yeah. Hey, let me just tell you, as someone who's entering that twilight age of 30, let me tell you, you ain't as strong as you used to be when those 24 hours nights, man. They hit you differently as the years get on there. Let me tell you. Whew.
it's funny, if you don't outright get like injured or get like a migraine or something, like if that doesn't happen, it almost feels normal, like it always had when you were like in your 20s or when you're a
Yeah,
teenager. But it's the aftermath. The
yeah.
aftermath. It takes longer to recover and come back. But
Oh no, no, yeah, yeah. I mean, I did over the last actual thing where I was up most of the night was I worked an overnight at Disney back in college, and I had to do a 7
that's
p.m.
right.
to a 3:30 in the morning, and I'm just like, this sucks.
Is this real life? I remember, yeah, you had worked there for a bit, and
I had a
I
lot of
didn't
one.
realize your shifts were like that sometimes.
Those were few far and in between, but like I had
Oh,
to do them
good.
every. I think I did one. I did one, but I had a lot of like 9 to 1, like 9 to 1:30 in the morning. So I'm getting home at 2:30 in the morning.
Oh,
You know,
dude,
so
it's
that
it's
I was like 21, so it wasn't too bad, but it's just like okay.
and you know what too. I think that in terms of extra life, like I think people realize, because when I first started, my fear, this didn't stop me, but it came to mind often. I thought, okay, if I talk to my friends and family who have I've heard about this, a month ago, 2 months ago, and I'm telling them this, that it's new to me too, and I'm telling them this is a charity that revolves around video games. And the fear was always that if someone would come back and be like, well, that's a dumb way to spend time, or that's not going to work, or like, oh, that's no skin off your back. Like, you play video games anyways. But to be honest, that has never happened. And I think that's because gaming has become such a big part of our culture, especially for parents who don't really get it. If they're like older Gen Xers, like they didn't, the best they had was Pong, right? So
Yeah,
like they're not really going to grow up with it as a hobby. But I grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's the coolest thing ever. Um, but I think that people are more accepting of gaming, but also maybe they respect the fact that we are staying up for a day straight, and there is work that goes into it. And if you communicate the heart behind it, and you're good at doing that, I think people will respond. And last year, we really started it earlier than usual in the year, and before we knew it, I was hoping to hit 5,000 because we were flirting with 7,000, but I thought, oh, COVID might be a down year, so let's go for five. Then we hit five pretty quickly, and then I thought, well, let's do 7,200 because if I'm adding up the previous 9 years correctly, that'll get us to $50,000 raised all time.
hmm.
So sure enough, we hit 72,000, 7,200.
Hmm.
I numbers good.
Don't
But then
worry, I do it all the time.
yeah, so we hit 7,200 very quickly, and I thought, okay, let's just go for 10. We've never hit five digits before. Like, let's just make this happen and
Just
just
steamroll.
see.
Yeah, just keep going. You might as well. The sky's the limit.
And honestly, it did, Brandon. It just we hit 10,000, and we were averaging about $1,000 raised per week. That was unheard of for us,
That's
and we just
nutty. I didn't know. I didn't know you guys were at that point, or you hit that level. That's crazy.
pretty much since like middle of July, like it really picked up, and it was a different hero every day. Like someone else got a donation. Team members can set up recurring donations to their own pages so that they're donating their own funds a little bit every month, like five,
Yeah.
10, $20, and that added up quickly. Trevor's detailing business that kept bringing in stuff. Matt was pounding the pavement on social media
Mm.
almost every day and getting over that 2,000. And then we started thinking of stunts. What are we going to do when
Yeah. Yeah. Those all those fun. Yeah, I remember those fun things.
yeah,
Your stunts, your fail challenges.
Yeah, initially we'd say, okay, let's have like three hats, and the first hat has
Yeah,
a team member's name. Second hat has a challenge, like beat the first level of Mario Brothers without losing a life, and if you won, great, whatever, congrats, go home. But if you lost, then you'd have to do a load of my laundry or
yeah,
wash my car
yeah.
or something.
I like how some of them wash your car. What did I get? What did little old going by cats and battle pants in the late to early 2010s get? Oh, hey, you have to wear a hockey helmet for 30 minutes. Now let me tell you something. To everyone listening to this, to all 5 of you who are going to listen to this, let me let you in a little secret. Your boy here was a catcher for many, 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 many a year. I had the same helmet from when I was in Pony League to high school. Let me tell you something. I am used to a disgusting smelling god awful thing you wear on your face.
Sure.
So when you said, "Oh, wear the hockey helmet," I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
I know you're like, if he's gonna say it was worse, it was not worse. I had no problem wearing that thing because I wore a hockey style catcher helmet. Like, I'm used to this. I wore that thing to Walmart, no problem.
Yeah. That's right. You guys had to run an errand, and
We had to go to Walmart, and I had the helmet with me. And the best part about that entire the thing was, it was Walmart like at 8:30, 9 o'clock in Chino. No one bothered to say, what's wrong with the guy wearing the Red Wings helmet? Not a person.
Maybe they thought it was stuck on your head, and you guys were buying some WD-40 to like get it off.
Either that or the kid's slow, and they just said, we got to protect you more. I
Maybe.
don't know which.
Who knows? If I remember right, you guys helped a gal on the side of the road, like she had a flat tire or something.
I think so.
And
I think so. Yeah.
And you were in the car the whole time.
With the helmet on. I'm in the car, so I'm like, if I go out there, they're gonna think someone's gonna rob them. So I'm just gonna hang out here and I'll got AAA on the line, guys. Don't worry.
Well,
I guess I could have worn it like on my head. I guess I could have had it. Looking back on it, I could have done the whole thing of like you lift it up. I can't really describe it via like voice, but there is a way you can kind of like lift it up, and it's resting on the back of your head.
It's perched on your head. Like goalies do that all the time to get a drink of water. So
yeah, I mean you can I guess I could have done that, but
well, we didn't tell Jake that the first year. Jake did it the first year, and
Jake Owens did it the first year, and he thought it was gross, and I'm like, this is nothing. Give me that thing.
Well, the funny thing was he was wearing it, and that's when like the pizza arrived. So when dinner got here, he was wearing the mask, and he had to keep it on. Like you can't eat pizza through a hockey mask, so he had it worse. But
he could have just perched it. I mean, that's technically on.
Oh, we wouldn't let him.
Oh, you guys are horrible.
Well, we didn't know when to quit. It was the first year. We were workshopping.
Those first couple of years, I don't know what stories I can share, but I remember there was one instant. I think you know the story, the one that involved your car and
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone might have ended up in a trunk. Just for 20 minutes. I mean, it wasn't that
Sure.
bad. And there's a emergency release. It's a modern car, so we're not barbarians. It wasn't like we were driving like the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard. Like there's a trunk release on the inside. But we did some things. But to fast forward a bit, I mean, we did fun stunts like that. Like drink a mouthful of water, then gargle "Call Me Maybe" or something. There's some song, So we did those things, but that's fun to do in the moment, during the event. And we've tried to get those things more on stream, but we realized, people want to see us do some crazy things, after the fact or for hitting an amount. So my wife Shelly said, "Hey, if I raise $1,000, like I'll get a tattoo." Our pal, she has a design picked out, and she has a tattoo artist in mind that her friends referred her to.
I guess I should say I didn't know she hit it. I guess is what I should have. I guess I should have let off with. I didn't know that actually.
She actually did hit it. We were hanging out with friends playing Family Feud in our friend's living room, and we were playing it like off of our phones and stuff, and it was just fun. And all of a sudden, because as team captain, I get a text alert.
Yeah, you get the text alert. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I heard that she got a donation, so I looked it up on my phone, and it said someone donated $500, and even $500. And she had just topped 500 earlier that day, so she's like, I got plenty of time.
Oh, no.
So we stopped everything, and we're like, it's time for a tattoo, let's go. And she was only a little mortified. She's never
Yeah,
gotten a tattoo before, but she has a good design in mind, and like I said, her friends referred her to an artist. So when it's safe with COVID, like she'll go get the tattoo. Yoshi wanted
got
to,
his.
to raise 1,000, so he got his, and he has a brand spanking new Yoshi tattoo on his leg, on his calf.
Oh, I didn't know where he was. I mean, I haven't seen the guy in over a year.
It's legit, man. I mean, he's on Twitch. His handle is 16-bit Yoshi,
Yeah,
and he has Yoshi's his whole identity. Like at work,
Yep.
everyone calls him Yoshi. So
Yep.
his real name is Jaw.